Hello everyone. A mother would do the unthinkable when she would leave her baby alone in a playpen for over a week while on vacation over 2,000 miles away. Today's case is a very hard case to talk about, but if a 16-month-old had to endure this, the least we could do is sit here and listen and talk about it. On June 6th of 2023 in Cleveland, Ohio, 31-year-old Kristel Candelario would put her 16-month-old daughter, Jailyn, in a playpen with a few bottles of milk and would be captured on video surveillance hauling her suitcase to her car before heading to Michigan. For 2 days, it's unknown what Kristel was doing while in Michigan, but her car would be caught in Flock in Michigan, which is a police video surveillance system that captures license plates. Her license plate and vehicle specifically being captured in Lincoln Park, Michigan, that night at 8:05 p.m. However, a couple days later on June 8th, Kristel would then board a flight at the Detroit airport for a 3-day vacation to Puerto Rico. She then flew over 2,000 miles away, leaving her baby to die a slow, painful death alone. Why did she do this? Well, that is a loaded question. But while on this vacation to Puerto Rico, it is known that she met up with friends, along with a man that it seems like she may have been seeing while there. And as you can see from photos, she spent a few days at the beach, she was partying, and she seemed to be having the time of her life. 2 days into the trip, a neighbor's Ring doorbell camera would end up capturing little Jailyn crying around 1 a.m. She would frequently be heard screaming on the surveillance footage, having been alone for days now, starving, soiling herself, unsure and confused why no one was coming to help her or give her attention. Yet sadly, none of the neighbors ended up reporting her cries to the police. No one ever went to check on little Jailyn, and she would end up crying until she didn't have the energy to cry anymore. Forensic psychologist Elizabeth Mooney would later say in court as she held back tears, and I quote, "The pain and suffering she endured lasted not only hours, not days, but possibly even a week. This feeling of abandonment for days on end, coupled with the pain of starvation and extreme thirst, is a type of suffering I don't think any of us could ever fully fathom." End quote. On June 11th, Kristel would then catch her flight back to Detroit, and she would again stay in Michigan for around 5 days. These Spirit airline tickets showing her departure and return flights. Now, it is kind of unknown what Kristel was doing in those days following her return to Michigan. However, as far as I've seen, she was hanging out with multiple different men. She was hanging out with one man at one point and then traveled to see another man. And it said that her vehicle would be spotted on many different surveillance videos. I'm assuming it's those police license plate videos where it captured her license plate around the city. But what it specifically showed was that she did not return back to Cleveland that entire time. Kristel wouldn't return home to Cleveland until June 16th, 10 days after she'd left her daughter in that playpen. And when she'd go inside, she would end up finding little Jailyn dead. And upon finding little Jailyn dead, she would then call 911.
Please release dispatch yourself. Come on, you need police, fire, EMS. Please run police, you need police, fire, EMS. What's that?
We want 29, 197.
129, 3129, West
Please, I need help.
Okay, I can't help you if I don't know where you're at.
However, despite how distraught Kristel sounded on that 911 call, before first responders arrived, Kristel would actually undress her dead daughter and redress her in clean clothing. She then concocted a story about what happened over the last week, telling investigators that Jailyn was actually sick, she had been throwing up and refusing to eat. Now keep in mind in the recording I'm about to show you, little Jailyn is actually deceased, laying on the floor covered in a white sheet at her mother's feet. And as she's telling investigators this tale that she's concocted about what was going on for the last week, she is not crying, she doesn't sound distressed, even though just maybe an hour earlier when she made that 911 call, she had been sounding very hysterical. So the fact that she's so calm when she's telling police the story was a big red flag to me. So I'm gonna play that video for you now.
We get a vomiting too. Remember right now when you mentioned the vomiting. She get a vomiting the last week, Monday and Tuesday, 2 times. But I was trying controlling because I know I give to her Tylenol or something, for.
Yeah.
for controlling the vomiting.
Okay. Come on, sir.
And
This is my supervisor, Sergeant Coleman.
Familiality too, I give to her when she gets diarrhea or vomiting. Hola, ¿qué tal?
Soy la sanitaria por el departamento de tengo una Autopsy.
Well, just to take note, Your Honor, she's
So
sitting in
yeah,
the chair.
that's the situation, and after that, she was refusing to do the food, and she was with no appetite. I say, oh my God.
This is after last Monday and Tuesday when she was throwing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you talking about Monday and Tuesday, like 4 days ago?
Yeah,
Okay.
the last week, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because we're almost done this week, so I talk about,
Because what, this week?
This week. Yeah, I talk about because we're almost done, the
Oh, we're almost done with this week?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that was just Monday and Tuesday of this week. She was throwing up.
Yes.
And then how was she Wednesday and Thursday?
She was with no food, just with a meal because she was refusing. Maybe it's because she get a vomiting 2 days, before.
Yeah.
So that's why
What?
I was scary because I say, oh my God, maybe go to the hospital because she doesn't eat anything, and she was lose tiny, her weight. I lose, her weight. But right now, in this morning when I wake up, she was asleep. She sleep every day 12 hours.
Okay.
She sleep like at 9 p.m. through 9 or 10 a.m.
Okay.
12 hours. So in this morning I was sleeping too. I never wake up. She was.
What happened? What was going on last night?
Last night she was crying a lot, and I see one moment when I was take a shower, and she was screaming like I don't know, probably she get a pain.
Okay.
Maybe.
About what time was that last night?
Maybe at 7 or 8 p.m.
Okay.
So she was screaming like, probably for pain or something like that. In this morning when I wake up, I took her in the morning for Jailyn, wake up, and she wake up, and when I see her, I see she looks like a really, really dry, like a, ¿cómo se dice cuando una persona se chupa, o sea, se...
Kind of like,
Yes.
Oh, like her face was sunken in?
So, ahí fue
Okay.
que yo me asusté y dije,
However, police and paramedics were not buying her story, and they realized that something awful was actually going on here when they had found little 16-month-old Jailyn laying on the mattress of this playpen covered in urine and feces. Little Jailyn was found to have lost 7 pounds in just over a week. She was emaciated, her eyes sunken in, her lips were dry and cracking, and she was found with fecal matter in her mouth and her fingernails, meaning that this baby had grown so hungry over the last week being left alone that she had resorted to trying to eat her own feces. Little Jailyn would be pronounced dead on the scene, and an autopsy would later show that she had died from starvation and dehydration. Now I'm going to play for you the doctor's findings, and I'm going to warn you now, it is extremely hard to hear, and you can hear how upset Dr. Elizabeth Mooney is while she had to recount this information.
The eyes were sunken, and she had temporal wasting in her face. In addition to that, the skin showed markedly decreased turgor, meaning when I pinch the skin, it remains in that tented position, indicating severe dehydration. In addition, there was abundant fecal material present, caked on the fingers, the fingernails, the hands, the feet, as well as the soles of the feet. The same material was found on her lips, which were very dry and flaking, as well as in her oral cavity, caked to her teeth. She did have some diaper rash appearance, as well as fecal material adherent to those areas. Of note, the body was essentially free of significant injury, with the exception of dried excoriations or scratches to the face region predominantly, and whether or not these were inflicted to herself in a conscious or semi-conscious state while she was dying, I'm unable to determine that. Very early decompositional changes were present. This included faint discoloration or green discoloration of the abdomen. These are typically changes that we see within 2 to 3 days following death. No additional changes to suggest that she passed away prior to this were found externally or internally. Upon internal examination, I continued to find evidence consistent with starvation and dehydration. These included pale discoloration of the musculature, which was minimal. There was a decrease in intra-abdominal fat to the point of transparency as her body tried to feed upon itself for nutrients. Her stomach contents consisted of less than 2 milliliters of brown mucoid material. This is about equivalent to the distal part of my thumb, a very small amount. The rest of her bowel just contained patchy fecal material, but very minimal throughout. Her organs, including her liver, kidneys, and thymic gland, showed evidence of stress, specifically microscopically on exam. I found no additional evidence of significant natural disease going on or congenital abnormalities. Following my exam, I submitted body fluids for additional toxicology and chemistry testing, which further confirmed my gross findings that she had passed in a state of severe dehydration. Her kidneys had failed, and she was in a state of ketoacidosis, which leads to coma and eventually death. As such, I determined the cause of death to be just that, starvation and severe dehydration due to pediatric neglect.
Kristel would end up being arrested, and only a few days later, she would once again be interviewed by investigators, who at this point had found evidence that she had been in the Detroit area during this time period she claimed to be home. And she would continue her lie to investigators by now telling them that she had gone to Michigan to drive for Uber. But again, police weren't buying her story, asking her why she wouldn't just drive locally, and also asking her why she wouldn't bring her daughter if she was going to a completely different state.
What time did you go to Detroit, Michigan on Monday? Monday morning? Okay. On Monday morning, what condition was Jailyn in?
She was okay.
She was okay? Was she awake, asleep?
No, she wasn't sleeping.
She was sleeping when you left? Sorry. You went there on Monday at what time?
Maybe 7 or 8 a.m.
In the morning?
Yeah.
Okay. 7 or 8.
Like every evening, I don't remember the exact name.
Early in the morning?
Yeah.
But when you left out, Jailyn was sleeping in her playpen? Okay. So, you go to Michigan. What time did you arrive in Michigan?
You say through here.
Apenas veía la derecha.
No, 2 horas con 30 minutos.
2 hours and 30 minutes.
2 hours, 30 minutes? Okay. So you get there, when you arrive there, who do you meet up with?
Aunque tú tengas otra
Yo llegué a un hotel, pero yo trabajaba de Uber, así que yo me puse a trabajar directamente en Uber.
She stayed at a hotel and she right away started working at Uber.
Pero ya después fui a visitar a otras amistades alrededor.
She went to visit some friends around there. Who did you go visit?
Amistades.
Who? Give me a name.
David, that's the name.
Jailyn?
Yeah.
Okay. So you arrive in 2 hours later, you get a hotel. Where did you stay?
No me recuerdo bien la ciudad que estaba ni el hotel.
Okay, come on. Todavía went to Detroit, Michigan. You don't know what city, you don't know what hotel. You gotta come out with something better than that.
No,
Okay.
pero el hotel de donde él se estaba hospedando,
No.
Super A.
Where you were staying, not David, where you were staying. We're not talking about David.
Super A, that's it.
Super 8?
Yeah.
All right, so you arrived here 2 hours later. You said it's Super 8. You mentioned something about Uber.
Yo estaba trabajando en Uber, sí.
She was working Uber. Why would you go, hold on. Why would you go work Uber in Detroit, Michigan,
Porque yo
instead of
aprovechaba.
doing it here in Cleveland,
Sí, porque
where your daughter is?
yo también trabajaba aquí en Uber, aquí en Cleveland.
Okay, well, why go over there, not do it here? Why not do it here? Your daughter's here.
Porque me iba a ver amistades también en Michigan,
She
entonces
was working some
aproveché.
friends over there in Michigan, so she took advantage of the fact that she was over there to visit people while she worked over there.
Pero no era siempre que yo lo hacía.
But not always. That's not, she didn't do that always.
Okay, don't take this the wrong way. At what point did you think that it would make sense to leave her here while you was in Detroit?
Él dice que no trato de la manera mal, pero ¿en qué momento tú pensaste que está bien
Por pasear, por
to travel,
por pasear,
Why not travel with you?
¿por qué no llegaste a ir contigo?
porque yo pensaba regresar el viernes y ya quedarme con ella. O sea, era algo rápido, eventual, que no...
She said that because she had planned on returning on Friday and spending time with them, so
Porque no me iba a quedar en la casa de nadie.
she
Como,
wasn't going to stay at anybody's house.
But why not bring her with you if you already knew that she had a condition going on at the time?
Si tú sabías que ella ya tenía una condición y estaba enfermita,
She needed
¿por qué no llevarla contigo?
porque por eso mismo, por yo pasear, por...
Because she wanted to have a good time and travel.
Now here's the thing. This wasn't the first time that Kristel had left Jailyn home alone. Neighbors telling the news, and I quote, "We keep telling her not to leave her by herself. Not just me, my friends across the street too. But she always leaves her by herself." End quote.
She was a happy baby, always smiling, always curious about stuff. She was wonderful. She was just a wonderful baby. We keep telling her not to leave her by herself. Not only me, my friend across the street too. But she always be here by herself.
We just couldn't believe that she was gone.
On another occasion, neighbors actually offered to watch Jailyn, and they ended up babysitting her, and it was only supposed to be for a weekend, but this weekend turned into them watching her for an entire month because Kristel never came to pick her daughter up. She basically abandoned her baby with these neighbors and never came back to get her for over a month. But this wasn't just a one-time thing or a two-time thing. This seemed to be a trend that Kristel seemed to have. It would turn out that 2 days prior to Kristel leaving for this vacation for 10 days, she had left Jailyn home for 2 days alone prior to that. A receipt in Kristel's car later showing proof that she was at a Denny's 2.5 hours away in Taylor, Michigan from June 4th, and she wouldn't return home till around June 6th, where surveillance video would end up capturing her returning home around 7:41 a.m. and leaving again at 5:24 p.m. with a suitcase to go on her 10-day vacation. Meaning, it seemed like Kristel was testing the limits, leaving Jailyn at home for longer and longer periods of time until the point where she felt like, okay, I can go on a vacation for over a week and she'll be fine, because all the times before she had been quote unquote fine. It's just awful. It's crazy that anyone would think to do this. Now, it would turn out that Kristel actually also had a 7-year-old daughter. However, it seemed like Kristel's parents took care of this daughter. But from what I've seen in articles, Kristel lived in that home where she lived with her 2 daughters and her parents. However, it seemed like the grandparents had taken the 7-year-old on a vacation from what I've seen, but it doesn't say for how long, why they left, if they were exactly living there. I've seen this one article that stated that they lived there with her, but then that makes me wonder, where were they going that they were gone for so long on vacation? If they knew that Kristel was so bad about taking care of her daughter, why didn't they bring Jailyn with them as well? Why would they leave her at home with this baby that she didn't want to take care of? There's just so many questions I have about this. There's something here that doesn't make sense to me. Then there's the questions I have, like, did anyone question Kristel when she was on this vacation? Like, where's your daughter? Did her family not wonder where the daughter was if she was posting these photos on social media? Like, do her parents not have her on, like, Facebook or Instagram or wherever these photos may have been, unless they were strictly just on her phone, because investigators did find these photos on her phone, so maybe she didn't upload them anywhere. It's just, there's some holes in this. On top of this, Jailyn's father is unknown to the public. As far as I've seen, the narrative goes with the father of Jailyn is that Kristel ended up meeting this unknown man in Ecuador. She got pregnant by him, and then there was DV in their relationship, so she ended up going back to the US, and that's where she gave birth to Jailyn. But if anyone has any information regarding this living situation, let me know down below. There's some holes in that really bother me. Now, what makes this case even sadder is that when it was brought to court, no one stood on Jailyn's side of the courtroom. All of Kristel and Jailyn's family were on Kristel's side of the courtroom, including Jailyn's grandparents, Kristel's parents. They would support their daughter and eventually beg the judge for mercy, saying that it was their daughter's mental health struggles that led to this. Her mother, Ketty Torres, saying, and I quote, her daughter had battled health struggles, including mental health illness and fainting spells. When her daughter stopped taking medication, it worsened her depression and anxiety and contributed to her inability to make sound decisions. End quote. Now, the only people that were actually sitting on Jailyn's side of the courtroom were actually law enforcement. And it was actually law enforcement that went to the stand and spoke on Jailyn's behalf for her, which is absolutely heartbreaking to me that it was law enforcement that was fighting for justice for this baby and not her own family. It's disgusting. Now, here's the thing. I can understand loving your child and wanting to support your child, even if they've done something wrong to an extent. But how about your granddaughter, who your daughter left to die alone and starve to death in a playpen while she was on vacation, partying it up, getting drunk? Your granddaughter died a horrific death and you're standing by her murderer. I could not only imagine the pain, but the confusion that that baby felt sitting in that playpen for over a week, wondering why no one was coming to save her, wondering why no one was picking her up and giving her hugs, why no one was changing her diaper or giving her food or water. And the fact that law enforcement and the public were more outraged than her own family is just, it's disgusting. And I have no sympathy for this family. It's gross. Kristel would eventually plead guilty to 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of child endangering, being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. However, she would stand up and say, and I quote, "I am not trying to justify my actions, but nobody knew how much I was suffering and what I was going through." End quote. Eventually telling the court that she prays daily for forgiveness and adding that she believes God and Jailyn have forgiven her. Kristel, this is a message to you, and I really do hope you can somehow from prison find this video. Because on the behalf of your daughter, since you don't care about her and neither does your family apparently, you left her to starve to death while you went to party in Puerto Rico and get drunk and get laid and tan on the beach. And I can understand mental health issues. Completely get it. I can even to an extent understand a parent leaving a child in a car and then going to work and then the child dying from heat stroke. It happens quite often, unfortunately, and there are many different factors that can lead to something like that happening unintentionally. I can understand a quote unquote, accidental death in that framework, even though it's still extremely horrible. But you made the conscious decision to pack a suitcase, to leave bottles of milk in the playpen with your daughter because you knew she needed some kind of sustenance for a certain amount of time. You then packed your suitcase up in your car, drove to Michigan, and did God knows what for a few days, screwing around with whatever guys you were screwing with there. And then you got on a plane, went to Puerto Rico to party, suntan on the beach, get laid. You can't convince me you did all of that with a little bit of depression and fainting spells. You have a history of leaving your baby alone. Not only did neighbors say that, but video surveillance footage proved that. So this wasn't a one-off thing where you had a mental break and you went somewhere and left your baby alone. You consciously made a decision to book flights, go party, all of this knowing that your daughter was dying at your home. And you can't tell me that you wouldn't think that she would have died being left alone for a week. You would know yourself that if you didn't eat for a week, you'd probably be really fucking hungry and maybe die. And you were eating and you were drinking for that entire 10 days that you were gone. So why wouldn't you think your child needed to? I don't buy your bullshit of the 911 call where you're wailing to the operator about how distraught you are that your daughter's dead. Not when just in the moments after you're sitting there very calmly talking to police while your daughter's laying under a sheet at your feet. You're a selfish excuse for a mother and a human being. And I actually read a quote where someone said that any other animal would take better care of their baby than she did. And it's true. And I am honestly so glad that the judge had seen right through her bullshit. And you could actually visibly see in the court footage how upset he was as well. The judge saying, and I quote, "Just as you didn't let Jailyn out of her confinement until she died, so too you should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom. The only difference is that prison will at least feed you." End quote. Her own attorney actually even got up and said, and I quote, "Yes, anxiety, depression, I struggle from that myself, and it is not excuse for what happened." End quote.
Committed the ultimate act of betrayal. Leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable. With no food, no water, no protection, and lying in her own feces. You decided you needed a vacation. And what followed was absolute depravity. You left your baby, Jailyn, trapped in a pack and play without food and water for 10 days. This wasn't simply an oversight. You could have saved Jailyn's life many times. You could have found someone to watch her while you were gone. You could have taken her with you. While you were in Detroit or Puerto Rico, you could have called someone in Cleveland and told them that Jailyn needed help. Dr. Mooney indicated that rigor mortis was found when they found her, which means She didn't die that long before you came home. Think about that. Despite all of her suffering, that little baby persevered, waiting for someone to save her. And you could have done that with a simple phone call.
And you can really tell that all of the people involved in this, the law enforcement, the judge, the doctors, they all were especially heartbroken over this case. It really affected them. And he even said that Jailyn fought so hard waiting to be saved, yet no one came to save her. Her mother didn't do anything to stop her from dying. She had multiple opportunities to call someone. She had multiple opportunities to go back home. It's just an awful case overall. And this is a case that really, really pisses me off. It reminds me a lot of the Baby Sterling case, which is a case that I've covered here on my channel. If you want to go watch that, I'll have a link here for you. But in the case of Baby Sterling, he was left alone in a baby swing for about 2 weeks, and he essentially died from his own urine and feces rotting him to death, on top of starvation and dehydration as well. It's awful. It's awful that there's people out here, that there's parents out here that will do this to their children. And it's something that we've seen happen before. This isn't the first case, and unfortunately it won't be the last. There's multiple other cases, just when I was researching this case, that I came across that had the exact same headlines, where a mother would leave their baby at home and go on vacation, and they'd come back to them dead. It's absolutely wild to me that anyone would think that that is a smart choice, or even a choice at all. Little Jailyn did not deserve this. She did not deserve to die this way, and this could have been so easily prevented. And I usually would never wish harm on someone, but I will say people in prison don't like people that hurt children. So maybe some prison justice will be in the cards for Kristel. But what I do want to know is how you all feel about this case. Let's have a chat about it down below. Is there any information that you know that I didn't include in this video? Usually at this point in the video is where I wish the family my love and my support, and I let you know that my heart goes out to them. But honestly, in this case, the fact that little Jailyn's family clearly did not care about her whatsoever, my heart does not go out to them. In my opinion, it's awful that they supported this woman in her actions. No matter what she may have been struggling with, I do not believe, in my opinion, that you can make all these other decisions after the fact, especially trying to cover it up after the fact, and then turn around and blame it on mental illness to that capacity. I do not believe that. There are definitely cases where you could use that card, and I do not believe that this is a case where you can. But let me know how you all feel about this. Okay, this video has made me very angry, so I'm going to end it here. But as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.